Would you like to learn about virtual machines both on and off the cloud? If so, this video is for you. In this video, we will discuss what is a virtual machine, how virtual machines work, how businesses use virtual machines both on and off the cloud, and then we will actually create a virtual machine. First, the old-fashioned way in our data center so you can truly learn how virtual machines work under the hood. And from there, we'll set up a virtual machine on AWS so you know exactly what is an EC2 instance. And finally, we will configure a virtual machine on Azure. Knowledge of virtual machines are critical cloud architect fundamentals. And by the end of this video, you will know what is a virtual machine and be able to set them up in both the data center, the AWS cloud, and the Azure cloud. To begin our discussion on what is a virtual machine, I'd like to discuss the history of servers. When I started working in tech, servers were not very powerful. Perhaps they had one core per CPU and maybe 2 to 4 CPUs per server, and maybe even a gigabyte of RAM. In those days, we put one application per server, and we had rooms with tens of thousands of servers. Fast forward a few years, and now we have servers with 192 physical cores and 384 virtual cores, along with 6 to 8 terabytes of DRAM, and possibly even a 64 terabyte NVMe RAID arrays providing incredibly fast disk performance. Now with servers like this, we can host many systems on a single physical server, saving a tremendous amount of rack space, power, and cooling. So virtualization is really about taking a server or a group of servers or an entire data center and dividing it up into smaller pieces. So here's how a virtual machine and virtualization works. We take a physical server, an empty server, often called the bare metal server, and then we install a hypervisor. And what is a hypervisor? It's a small software application that enables us to take this physical server and divide it up into many small servers. It's kind of like having a pizza and cutting it up into slices and giving the slices to your friends. Now, if a server has 384 virtual cores and we needed 8 core servers, we can divide those 384 core servers into about 48 virtual servers, which each have 8 server cores. I want you to think about that. We can take one server and divide it up into 48 servers. Imagine the amount of space, cooling, and power that saves. But it's not just that. It actually saves cost too, because it's buying one server, albeit a more expensive server, than 48 servers. Now the way this is going to work is we're going to install a hypervisor on the system. And the hypervisor is going to divide disk, memory, and CPU resources as we desire to each individual virtual machines. So virtualization has a lot to offer, but let's talk about the business things we can talk about. Virtualization provides a lot of agility. Let's say we had an 8-core system and we needed more capacity. We could add CPU cores as necessary by just changing a few things in the configuration. Or if a server has a problem, we can take the virtual server and move it to a new server at a moment's notice. And all that's really necessary is to copy a file from one system to another system. As you can see, virtualization has a lot to offer. So at this point, let's go build some virtual machines in our data center. And then from there, we'll do it on AWS and Azure. Now we're logged into a VMware server inside of our data center. As you can see under the hardware section, our server is manufactured by Dell. You can see the server has 24 cores and approximately 128 gigabytes of RAM. Now you can also see the server's utilization right now, which is pretty much at 0% on the CPU side in the upper right hand corner of the screen. You can see that the free memory in this server is 125 gigabytes approximately. And you can see there's 1.2 terabytes of storage free on this system. So let's actually create a virtual machine so you can see what it is. First, we're going to create a virtual machine. Now, in the cloud, you're going to select from pre-made virtual machines, but in our data center, we're going to create them and we can customize them as we desire. So we'll name the virtual machine. Let's call it Mike's VM. And from here, we're going to tell it what type of operating system we'd like to use. And from there, we'll tell it an operating system version. In this particular case, we'll pick a 64-bit version of Ubuntu Linux. From there, we're going to talk about which storage platform we want to use. As you can see, there's multiple hard drives sitting in this system. And now we'll actually design our virtual machines. We'll pick the number of CPU cores we want to use. Let's say in this case we're going to use 4. And we'll pick the amount of memory that we want to use. Let's change that memory to gigabytes, and let's change that to say 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now let's determine the size of the hard drive we want, which in this case is actually 40 gigabytes. Now, what we have to do here, we have to manually install the operating system. So here what we're going to do is we're going to pick an operating system disk, which just happens to be stored on that system. And pretty much that's almost all we really need to do. We'll click Next, and then we'll click Finish. Now, as we go to the server, you'll actually see Mike's VM here. And we would use this VM or virtual machine like we would any other system. So let's boot up this virtual machine. And as you can see, it's going to boot up. And now you can see it's actually giving me the Ubuntu Linux installer, or it's loading that installer. It's checking the drives as if we were going to use any other system in the world. And when the installer boots up, I'll stop it. I just wanted you to see how we would actually set up a system. And this system is going to boot up like any other system. I'll wait for the installer to load. We'll pause it there. And then we'll go to Eddie, who's going to demonstrate an AWS EC2 instance. And then Eddie will also demonstrate an Azure virtual machine. As you can see, we've reached the installer state.
Hi, today I'm going to be walking you through the process of launching a virtual machine on AWS. For the requirements for this lab, you need access to a free tier account, and once you're logged into your free tier account and you're on the console homepage, you want to go to the search bar to type in EC2. Once you type in EC2, you're going to see a drop down, but you want to make sure to select the first option at the top, which is virtual servers in the cloud. Great. So now you're going to proceed to launch instance, where you're required to customize your instance and select an Amazon machine image of your choice, or depending on your use case, the instance type, and as well as create a key pair to help you to securely connect to your instance. So we're going to start by naming our instance. We want to make sure to select free tier eligible Amazon machine images. At this point, it is already selected the Amazon Linux 2023 AMI, which is free tier eligible. We're going to leave it at that. But if you want to select another AMI, you can click the drop down and select other AMIs which list free tier eligible at the side. So we're going to equally select an instance type which is free tier eligible, and if you intend to change this as well, you can click the drop down. You'll be shown a list of other instance types, but you want to make sure to select those that show free tier eligible. So we're going to leave it at T2 micro. We're going to create a new key pair to use to securely connect to our instance. So you click create a new key pair. You enter the key pair name. Great. So now we're going to make use of the key pair name test key 3. We're going to leave the key pair type as RSA. But for the private key file format, we want to make sure to select the option which matches with the SSH client we have installed on our device. So for the purpose of this lab, I'll be making use of git bash, which makes use of the .pam file format. But if you're making use of PuTTY, you can make use of the .ppk format. So I'm going to leave it at .pem, and I select create key pair. After you click create key pair, it's going to download the key pair, which is in .pem format, to your downloads folder. We're going to get to using it in a bit. We're going to leave the network settings as they are, but you want to ensure that you allow SSH traffic by checking the box. On the right side, you're going to see a summary panel which lists all the options you have selected for your EC2 instance. If you intend to modify these options, you can go ahead and select or make the changes from the left panel, which has all the services related to your instance. At this point, we're going to go ahead and click Launch Instance. Great, so now it shows that it has successfully launched our instance. So we want to scroll down to the bottom of the page to click View All Instances. So at this point, you see that I already had instances which I had launched earlier, but you want to make sure to look at the instance state to see which particular instance you're working with. So great, we're going to see the instance test server 1 at the bottom, which says running, to show that our instance has successfully started and we're good to connect to it. So to connect to your EC2 instance using the SSH client installed on your PC, you want to click the box at the side of the instance which you've just created, and you go to instance state, you go to actions, and you click connect. You'll be redirected to a page which shows you the options for your EC2 instance, and you want to make sure to select the option SSH client, where you can click copy we're essentially copying a key to help us to connect to our instance. And at this point, you want to navigate to the folder where you've downloaded your key pair. And you want to right click and select Git bash here. So at this point, you'll be required to input the key which you just downloaded, the key which you just copied from your console. So you right click and you select paste and you hit enter. So at this point, it's going to ask you for your confirmation to connect to the instance, and you'll be required to type in yes. So once you type in yes, you press enter, and at this point, we've successfully connected to our EC2 instance. We can begin installing scripts, we can begin installing packages, and so on and so forth. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the process of creating an Azure virtual machine on Microsoft Azure. For the requirements for this lab, you only need access to your Microsoft Azure account. And once you logged in, you want to navigate to the virtual machines tab by either searching for the resource in the search bar or by clicking the left side panel and navigating to virtual machines. So once you are at the virtual machines tab, you want to go to create, which is at the top left, and you select Azure Virtual Machine. Now you'll be redirected to the page where you can start customizing your virtual machine, and you begin from the project details tab to select a resource group. I'm going to click the drop down and select desk 1 group, and you proceed to the instance details tab to provide a virtual machine name for your instance. So I'm going to name this instance test server 1. You can equally select a region of your choice. You can select an availability zone, and you can select multiple availability zones for high availability. For now, we've selected just one zone, but you can select 2 or even 3 availability zones to replicate our servers across those availability zones. But for the purpose of this lab, we're going to select just one availability zone. For security type, we can leave it as standard, but you have other options as well. And for the image type, we're going to select a free services eligible machine image. So you have Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, and you have other free services eligible images as well, but we're going to make use of Ubuntu 20.04. For virtual machine architecture, we're going to select x64. For size, we're going to select standard B1s with 1 virtual CPU and 1 GB of memory, which is equally free services eligible, but you have other options as well. And for administrator account authentication type, we have 2 options. We can use SSH public key to download an SSH key pair to enable us to securely connect to our Azure virtual machine, or we can as well create a password, a username and password to allow us to authenticate to our virtual machine. So for the purpose of this lab, since we'll be making use of an SSH client, Git bash, we're going to choose the option SSH public key. We're going to provide a key pair name, test key 1. So we'll just leave it at test key. And you want to make sure to enable port 22 to allow internet access to your instance. Up next, we're going to proceed to disks. And for the OS disk, we want to make sure to select a free services eligible disk size by clicking the drop down and selecting the resize to 64 GB, free account eligible. For the OS disk type, we're going to leave it at premium SSD and the key management as well. Now we're going to proceed to networking, and it's going to automatically generate a virtual network, a subnet, and a public IP for us. And at this point, you can navigate through the other options, management, monitoring, advanced tags, and customize them based on your use case. But for the purpose of this lab, we can go right away and proceed to creating our virtual machine. So I'm going to click on review plus create, which is at the bottom left. At this point, you're going to see all the settings you've chosen for your virtual machine, and you can scroll down to the bottom of the page. In case you require to modify these changes, you can click previous and it's going to take you back to the instance customization page. But everything is good so far, so we're going to proceed to create. After you click create, it's going to generate you this pop-up, which is going to show you the option to download your private key and create the resource. So you want to go ahead and click that, and it's going to download the key pair while creating your resource at the same time. So we have our key pair downloaded in .pem format. And it currently shows deployment in progress. So we want to wait for a second for it to complete. Great. So it shows that our deployment is complete and we can proceed to our virtual machine. So we want to navigate to the option which shows go to resource, and we click it. So here we're going to find all the information related to our virtual machine which we just created. So at this point, we'll be required to connect to our virtual machine using our SSH client. And to do this, we want to navigate to connect. Under the SSH option, you're going to scroll down to the path for your SSH private key. This is essentially the folder in which you downloaded your SSH private key. So I'm going to navigate to where I downloaded my private key and show you how to copy the path to that file to generate a command to help us SSH into our Azure virtual machine. So I'm going to go to my desktop, SSH key, which is a folder I created for the file. And I'm going to right click the file and select copy as path. So you want to make sure you have this option. Click copy as path, and it's going to copy the path to this file. So we want to go back to our browser, and under the option private key path, you want to paste the path you just copied from your private key. So you right click and select paste. And at this point, it's going to display you an example command to use to connect to your virtual machine with the exact location of your private key. So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard, and I'm going to go back to the same folder where I downloaded my private key. And I'm going to right click on the folder and select the option git bash here to launch my SSH client. So at this point, you want to paste the key you copied from your browser. Select paste, and you want to hit enter. So it's going to ask you to authenticate by either typing yes, no, or a fingerprint, and we're going to type in yes, and then you hit enter. Great. At this point, we've successfully created our Azure virtual machine. We've downloaded a key pair. We've copied the path to the key pair, and we've used it to generate a command to enable us to SSH to our virtual machine instance, which we have done successfully. Here you'll be able to proceed by installing packages within your instance as or based on your specific use case. Thank you for watching this video.
I hope you've enjoyed this video on virtual machines, both on and off the cloud. To learn how to become the ultimate cloud architect, or how to get your first cloud architect job, or how to get promoted in tech, attend one of our free webinars. The link is in the description below. We also have a tremendous number of free resources to help you in your cloud architect career, and it's in the description of this video. Lastly, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Make sure to hit the bell to be notified of new videos to help you in your cloud architect career. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.